to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Mindset channel. Hey, I got a long ways to go tonight, but first I want to thank all the subscribers and the members who keep hanging in there and everything like that, and the people that keep watching these videos. Hey, tonight I'm going to get into something that I think is long overdue. I want to talk about a song and a man that made a big mark in the 80s. The song, Bad Mama Jama. Hey man, that thing was funky R&B. And the maker, the creator, the singer, Carl Carlton out of Detroit. We're going to get in that story right now. Hang around to the end. There's a lot to learn, and there's a breakdown of the song so you can kind of hear what they're really doing in that funky tune. Man, see you in a minute.
She's a bad mama jama.
Yes, she is, man. She's built. She's stacked. All the curves that men like. And if you didn't know, this is what you would have called a bad mama jama back in the 80s. Now, whether you live in the penthouse or a shack by the railroad tracks, we're about to get some knowledge about one of the funkiest R&B songs ever made, and I mean that. I don't care who you are or where you from, you heard this thing before, and if you go outside today, you're probably going to hear it somewhere before you get back to the house. Yeah, that hot. So let's get into the story about it. We're traveling back to a time when the groove wasn't just a sound, it was a survival tactic for some in the community. We're talking about the journey of a man whose voice was so pure and so electric that people literally mistook him for sounding like a voice coming from a radio. Yeah, I'll clear that up. But we're talking about the Detroit-born, Houston-molded legend, Mr. Carl Carlton. Stand up, Detroit, it's your turn again. The story starts on May 21st, 1952. And yeah, we're setting the record straight right now, because the history books and a whole lot of folks on the internet got it twisted out there claiming it was 1953, while the family stepped forward and told y'all it was 1952. So, this was the year the magic factually began. He was born Carlton Hudgens in the heartbeat of Detroit, Michigan, and this brother was baptized in the holy waters of gospel and the electric current of Motown. But check this out. Carl didn't get discovered in a fancy audition. He got discovered on what some would call a baseball diamond in the hood. Imagine a young Carl out in a vacant lot, playing street baseball with his friends, swinging for the fences, singing loud and crooning his heart out. Then a neighbor yells out the window, "Turn that radio off!" And the kids holler back, "That ain't no radio, that's Carl." Yeah, you know the neighbor was serious about the noise, but kind of being sarcastic at the same time. Yet Carl's voice was so big, it drew attention and stopped the game. That neighbor, who actually had connections to the Detroit music scene, came down and took a look, recognized the gift, and made plans to take Carl straight to Lando Records. And it was the right move, because he got signed with Lando in 1964 at the age of 11. Now, let me slip this in here right quick. Many people don't talk about it, probably because they don't know this. But Lando was actually owned by that famous child prodigy you may remember, Sugar Child Robinson, who was in his late 20s at the time, along with an older Clifton Dickinson Jr. You could see the poetic symmetry of a child prodigy signing a child prodigy too. But that only lasted until the next year, because Sugar saw something bigger and struck a deal with Golden World Records, who had bigger reach. So they re-released the same single on their label in 1965, which was way more successful and turned Carlton into a recognized regional star. This was also the bridge to Carl Carlton's national career. And by the late 60s, he was on the verge of becoming a star, and they would call him Little Carl Carlton, now a teenage prodigy, modeled after Stevie Wonder, out there tearing up the local scene. But the Little Carl Carlton era soon reached a turning point. I mean, just that fast he found himself unsigned and an independent free agent when Berry Gordy and Motown purchased Golden World in 1966 to eliminate their competition in Detroit. So Carlton had to spend the next 2 years grinding and hoping for something new to happen. That's when he hooked up with local guys in the music scene, and they got him in a studio to record the song Competition Ain't Nothing.
Competition ain't nothing, y'all. If you got no love.
And this song was smoking, becoming a local radio firestorm. With that success, he immediately followed it up with the song 46 Drums, One Guitar. But try imagining this and what it was like. Both songs were released while he was still a teenager at Murray Wright High School in Detroit, solidifying his status as a wonder boy. But Competition Ain't Nothing was the real noisemaker, so big that it caught the ear of a big owner and record mogul. So, the legendary Don Roby of Backbeat Records came calling with a contract and a one-way ticket to Houston, Texas. Talk about a culture shock coming cousins. I mean, Carl was going from the gritty pavement of Detroit's Black Bottom neighborhood to waking up to the smell of fresh country air and Jersey cows on Roby's ranch. But he would have to make it work somehow. Now, at Backbeat Records, they simply picked up the existing master recording of the Competition Ain't Nothing song and printed it on their own label for national distribution. The song exploded far beyond the local Detroit scene, becoming a national hit and a global cult classic, taking Carl to a new level. Anyway, when Carl wasn't on the road, he was a regular fixture at the Duke Peacock Club, soaking up wisdom from the architects of the sound. He was working with giants like Gamble and Huff, before they were the kings of Philly soul, and the legendary Bunny Sigler. He was building his arsenal, note by note, hit by minor hit. So Carl was moving along in the game, but then came 1974, and he had now become part of the tight-knit Detroit music scene. This also helped him become friends with the legendary David Ruffin of The Temptations. And when hanging out one time, he heard a song Ruffin had tucked on his debut solo album. This flipped a switch in Carl's head, but he didn't even realize it was a cover of an old Robert Knight tune. He just knew it had the fire he wanted for himself. That song was Everlasting Love. Now, a couple of artists had already tried to cover it after Robert, and some even made it a bigger hit than Robert did, but Carl had to jump in and put his own sweet stank on it. Now, that record was a monster. It hit number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and made Carl a household name. But the industry is a cold game, family. Despite the fame, royalty disputes with ABC Records sidelined him for a minute. For nearly 2 years, Carl couldn't even record Mary Had a Little Lamb. He was a superstar, sitting in a holding pattern. But Carl wouldn't just stay on his butt. He hit the gym, and he hit it hard.
Oh, you work out, I tell you. Oh, Carrie, while I'm doing this, run and get me a towel for Carl. That man does work, so somebody zip back to the makeup room and get him something to dry off with. You work out.
Thank you. I work hard.
I noticed you up in the dressing room with that thing doing this. I mean, that body doesn't come naturally. I literally mean you work out. You exercise a lot?
I run, I jog, I lift weights, I do it all.
He even started training with the hitman himself, boxing legend Thomas Hearns. When the crap with ABC finally ended in '77, he immediately signed with Mercury Records, releasing Something's Wrong, but it only saw modest success. So he kept working in the studio and the gym. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Carl Carlton wasn't just a singer. He was a physical specimen, built like a brick house and looking for a groove that matched his new energy. Enter Leon Haywood in 1981. Now, I gotta give you the real inside game on this, and I know it's gonna surprise y'all. Leon had this track he'd released back in '78 called She's Built, She's Stacked on his Double My Pleasure LP. It was a heavy P-Funk thing, but Leon saw what the world was missing. He flew Carl to California, and they began cooking. Leon gutted that '78 arrangement, stripped it to the bone, and built a synth-funk fortress around Carl's powerhouse voice. And in August 1981, they dropped the hammer and the song you've been waiting to hear this whole video.
Look at her. She's a bad mama jama.
Yeah, you got it. While not a complete remake, it was the evolution of Leon's '78 groove.
Her body measurements are perfect in every dimension.
I was a young man back then, and I always felt I'd heard those lyrics somewhere before. Turns out, I was right. Carl's version was just the funky track that the world would spend money on. Now, mindsetters, can I do it?
Do it!
Yeah, man, I gotta do it, because this ain't no ordinary jam.
Just do it!
And if you came this far, I need to jack this machine up and look at the funk from the bottom up, because this wasn't just a song, it was a blueprint and an anthem for the early '80s transition from disco to pure synth, R&B. Move Over Brick House. Now first, there is a real reason this song was so funky. Being recorded at the Fort Knox recording studio in Los Angeles, and the iconic musicians and singers involved, but let's start with the bass line. Yeah, if there ever was an iconic bass line, this is it. Man, the song dies without it. Then you had James Gadson thwacking the drums on this joint, the human bridge between the raw soul of the 60s and the high-tech gloss of the 80s. You need to understand that James Gadson didn't just play the drums. He engineered the air around them. The kick was tuned specifically for depth to accommodate the massive club speakers of the era, and he had the Ludwig Superphonic on that snare to get that crack you hear, along with layered studio hand claps. James Gadson, the unshakable architect of the R&B pocket who fueled over 300 gold records across a 6-decade career, passed away at the age of 86 on the 2nd of April 2026, following a fall and subsequent surgery. Now, let's get to the guitar parts, and this is where you will hear the keys underneath too. That's straight old school funk progressions going on, and a number of musicians contributing. People like Tony Drake and Michael McGlory on guitar, but you also had the great George Duke and James Ingram here on keyboards too. Yeah, man, today, most of these guys are household names, but back then, a few of them were just getting their big opportunity to become legends on this song right here. And finally, the vocals.
Her body measurements are perfect in every dimension. She's got a figure that's shown up in attention.
Carl's voice is at its peak here, sophisticated and classy, while keeping it strictly for the streets.
She's real. She's got all the curve, man. Look at her. She's a bad Mama Jama.
You can hear a Stevie Wonder-like tone and swag amped up with the grit of the hood.
Hey, she's a bad Mama Jama. Oh, just as fine as she can be. Looks like she's born into the cold she had. The essence of beauty. Ooh, such a lovely hair.
Now, besides Carl, that background part had some names in it, man. Like James Ingram, even Phil Perry, plus a few others.
I work with the Jackson 5 musicians. We use them. James Ingram, Mike McGlory, James Gadson, George Duke. That's George playing those keyboards, him and James Ingram. And we had the best. That's why it sounds the way it does.
The song was an absolute monster, staying at number 2 on the R&B charts for 8 weeks straight. The only things keeping Carl from that, number 1 spot were Rick James's Give It To Me Baby and Frankie Smith's Double Dutch Bus. That's the kind of company he was keeping. The song earned him a Grammy nomination and went straight gold. But the fire that burns twice as bright often burns half as long. The record label forced Carl to put out a second album before the Mama Jama steam had even settled. Leon Haywood didn't produce the follow-up, and the magic formula started to drift. Labels were bought and sold, executives changed, and Carl found himself facing the maze of the music business again. But check the resilience of this man. In 1982, he went global, taking a cover of Baby I Need Your Loving into the top 10 in Australia. And in 1994, when he returned with the Main Event album, he sang lyrics that told his own story. He stayed active. He toured the world, performing with people like Maze and Smokey Robinson. He eventually turned his voice back to the creator, releasing the gospel album God Is Good in 2010. The whole time, Carl was married and had a wife named Nita. She strongly supported his career, along with the love he got from their kids, and he even got to see grandkids too. But the physical toll of a life lived so much for the stage caught up to Carl, and unfortunately, a stroke in 2019 sidelined him, beginning what his adult son called a long, hard fight that lasted 6 years. Then sadly, man, on December 14, 2025, and at the age of 73, Carl Carlton left us and went home to the great recording studio in the sky. This guy was incredible, especially if you take the time to go back and listen to his work when he was going into his 20s. But listen to me, that Bad Mama Jama groove could never die. And because of it, you can hear Carl's DNA in every corner of music today. A couple of artists have tried to do their versions of the song, paying homage to the man who gave the body a reason to boast. With over 100 million streams and counting, Carl Carlton is still the soundtrack to every backyard cookout and every Saturday night skate session. He wasn't just a singer, he was a performer who owned the airwaves at one time. This was Little Carl from Detroit, doing grown man things in the music industry and leaving a permanent legacy that must be respected.
Yeah, man, Carl Carlton, a great singer, man. I listened to a lot of his old stuff. I suggest you go look for some of the older stuff when he was like young. Man, that dude was incredible. And he was trying to go with that Stevie Wonder thing. That's what they thought he was, the next Stevie Wonder. And he has an incredible voice, incredible style, and he can move a little bit too and stuff like that. But he made his mark for me on that song, Bad Mama Jama. Y'all know that's a bad song, man. You know what I'm talking about? Or bad meaning good. Hey, appreciate you on the channel. I appreciate you watching the videos, and I'll see you guys next time on the Music Mindset channel.